Well, how do the chums, as I, Captain Stephen. Today, chums, I'm doing a reaction video for you guys out there in the viewerverse. So this is a Gamespot chappie that's picked up No Man's Sky. He has never played it, but here's it's good after 5 years. So let's see what he's had to say. I've jumped straight to the point where he starts his review.
But 5 years later, No Man's Sky is a different game with an impressive number of regular updates. In fact, by many accounts, the game is good now. Not only that, but it's one of video games' greatest redemption arcs. I admittedly haven't played the game until now, but after seeing heaps of praise for all of the updates, it was time to finally pick it up and discover just who is No Man, and how does he own the sky? I wanted to see.
Righto. Okay, well, at least we're getting the perspective of, say, a new player coming into the verse and picking up the game. What I would say is look at all the cartridges behind him on the shelf. This guy's got a lot of Nintendo games he's putting up in the forefront. And I'm hearing Nintendo sound effects, so he might be a bit salty this doesn't play on the Nintendo Switch.
I wanted to see how the game is now, and if someone like myself, who wasn't initially interested in the game, would enjoy it with all of the new updates. To be clear, this video isn't meant to be a review, but rather my personal experiences, which may or may not connect with you. So I figured what better way to do that than install No Man's Sky on my PS5 and download the PS5 patch to get the best experience possible, which was when my PS5 promptly decided to brick! No, really. I'm waiting for the box right now so I can ship it back. So I installed the game and
Right, so is he suggesting that No Man's Sky and Hello Games just completely minced his freaking PlayStation 5? Well, I've installed it, millions of others have installed it, well, probably not millions, but a fair freaking few have installed it, and I very much doubt it's bricked their PlayStation, so let's just move on, shall we?
So I installed the game and its patches onto my PS4 and promptly hopped into No Man's Sky. As I have no friends, I decided to check out the single player mode, which presented me with 5 options. While I usually like to play a game on normal first, permadeath, let's go. This might not be the smartest idea for a game I've never played, but it was bold in center.
Life support systems activated.
Wait, I'm already being poisoned? Wait, hold on, what element do I need to gather? How? Maybe I just got unlucky with the starting area. Let's just load up another permadeath run and... Oh shit. Well, you know what they say. Third time's a charm. Okay, fine. I'll play it on normal. Before you judge too harshly.
Okay, now I feel that he raises a very good point here. Now, No Man's Sky is a PEGI 7 game over in the UK, so yeah, it's aimed at quite a young audience. Now, I know when I was little, even now actually, when I'm an adult, reading is not my forte. And those tutorial things that pop up in the bottom right hand corner that are telling you what to do, while in the left hand corner your energy bar is depleting super quick. Even when you're trying to read that, so you're completely distracted from the task at hand, it doesn't pause. There's no pause to let you read that. Yes, you can jump into camera mode, but there's nothing that tells you that you can go into camera mode either. So I would say that the tutorial at the moment is extremely difficult for new players picking up the game. Once you're versed and you know what you're doing, it's fairly simple. But for those that want to read and understand what they're doing and how to do it, it's not that great. And they really do need to fine-tune that. Pause it, bring it up, maybe even have a voiceover that reads it for you for the younger audience.
Normal. Before you judge too harshly, you have to remember I've never played this game before, so I didn't know anything about the controls, mechanics, or where to find the materials I desperately needed. So normal did make sense. And finally, I landed on a planet where I immediately started overheating, but had time to figure out how to solve the issue. And that was when I quickly discovered something many people had already mentioned about the game. The fact that everything you own and use is constantly breaking. So I found myself running around trying to collect carbon, oxygen, sodium, and other resources to regularly fix myself up, all while occasionally finding a cave to hide in from minutes in real time long firestorms. The first mission I had was to find my crashed starship and rebuild it, which I was genuinely excited to do. Of all of the planets I'd started on, I found this one to be one of the most bland and ugly. So I was pretty excited to get off of this godforsaken rock and onto the next procedurally generated nightmare planet. And after blasting off to my next mission objective, it took me right back to another part on the exact same planet. God damn it. My next mission was to gather another batch of resources and build a wooden base and shelter I could use for the extreme heat and firestorms of the planet. I've never felt safer in a wooden hut. It is worth noting that constructing my wooden base was actually one of the many features not present in the base game. I guess you had to just hide in caves for a while or suffer in hellish storms and cry. Although bases were one of the first updates to the game and added just a couple months after release with the Foundation update. Apparently, the No Man's Sky next update of 2018 is what let players build bases anywhere as opposed to specific spots, so I could have also been benefiting from that. They feel pretty integral to the game, as they give you a safe space to construct on any planet, so it's hard to imagine the game without them. So after surviving a firestorm and roaming around for even more resources, it was time for me to finally head back into space. This led to my first...
Well, other than hiding in caves, you could have called your ship down to you and just jumped inside your ship, since your ship's fixed now, you know? So there are other ways to actually negate storms and things, but yes, you are quite right. There are going to be times where you have to take shelter. You know, you're on a surviving type, exploration type game. It's kind of a given, really. It's not Donkey Kong Country. Now, what I would say is, as you get further into the game and you install hazard protection, you can actually weather most storms. You can just stroll through them. So there's that. And when you go up to the station, it's one of the vendors. You pick up the hazard protection, you can install it in your suit. Later on, you even get an exomech, a bit like Titanfall. Ha! It even drops from the sky like Titanfall now. And you can get inside your exomech, which also negates the storms. So there are other ways and means. If you had patience and played it through a little bit longer, or focused on upgrading your gear for your exosuit. So there's a lot you can do to negate storms.
Back into space. This led to my first space station, which actually looks pretty cool from the outside. I don't understand what any of the aliens inside are saying, but you can ask them for translations of one word at a time, and only one word per alien per each alien race. You can also find knowledge stones on planets that do this, where I learned the Gek word for Gek. But back down.
Okay, I completely agree with this guy. The learning of languages is far too slow, and even when you do learn the lingo and the languages, when you speak to the different races, it makes no real difference at all. You don't get extra sort of discounts or bargains or learn anything new from them, and there's no kinship at all there. And even the faction ratings, as you go up in faction rating, plays no difference at all to what they might say or what they might do. The trade seriously needs tweaking, the language learning seriously needs tweaking, but at the same time, it does sort of give you that sense of progression as you're learning the words and moving through. They just need to make it more fun. So I'm kind of on par with him with that comment. Learning of languages, especially the Atlas language. In fact, I've done a video on Atlas learning of words, which I'll put in the top right hand corner.
But back to outer space, where the real fun is to be... Wait, why can't I boost anymore? Oh, I need more resources? Of course.
I know, right? Mind-blowing. You need to put fuel in things to make them move. I never would have frickin' guessed that was a frickin' thing. Come on, now you're just being a little bit nitpicky, you nitpicky nitpicker. Heck yeah.
Of course. So you don't even get a respite from resource depletion and management in space. You're constantly running out of boost fuel, which you'll need to shoot down asteroids to collect. And lest I forget, there is space combat. But don't expect any Star Fox level maneuvering here. Anyways, eventually I got...
Star Fox, you say? Another Nintendo game, you say? I'm not surprised. But at the same time, good idea. Freaking good idea. There could be some more maneuvers for ships. That'd be freaking funky. I would like that. So yeah, nice little spot there, nice little catch. Oh, and again, you do get respite from freaking fuel. You just need to upgrade your frickin' engines in your ship. Do that, and you won't run out of fuel so frickin' quickly. And also, you can buy fuel inside of the stations of the Galactic Trade Terminal once you've got enough units. But looking at the top of your screen on a lot of these screenshots, you've not got a lot of units, my friend. So yeah, there are ways and means to negate some of the resource gathering. In fact, you can buy most resources at Galactic Trade Terminals once you start building your units, if you give the game a chance.
Anyways, eventually I got the ability for my spaceship to achieve hyperdrive, meaning I could quickly head to another star system and new planets, away from my fire hellhole. Hyperdrive fuel status empty. Ugh. After gathering resources for antimatter, I then had to gather even more resources for an antimatter housing. And you may be asking yourself, but Dave, why don't you just gather a ton of each resource at once? That way you'll have everything you need when you're ready to craft something new. That's what I thought. Stop stealing my thoughts. Well, you see, you have limited space in your exosuit/starship for resources, and crafting something also takes up a slot in said storage spots. There's also advanced resources you have to put into a furnace to craft, which also takes extra slots. In other words, you'll constantly need to manage what's in your exosuit and drop resources you don't currently need. But eventually, I blasted off and found a whole new set of planets. And this is when the game finally started to pick up. I discovered more of the main plot, where I had to try and track down a character named Artemis. This ended up being what I spent a lot of my time doing, and apparently, this narrative drive was actually added in an update a year after the game's release in 2017 as part of the Atlas Rises update. It wasn't the most interesting storyline, and as per No Man's Sky's MO, every single tiny update to the story took another round of gathering resources, crafting things, gathering more resources, and traveling back and forth between planets, but at least it gave me some kind of drive. Honestly, it's kind of unbelievable this wasn't in the game at launch, as it felt absolutely integral for keeping me at least somewhat interested in the game, while also teaching me some of the game's mechanics. After following this storyline...
The Artemis questline is actually quite moving. It's actually quite awesome, to be fair, and I would suggest that perhaps you didn't play it all the way through to the end, because I'm not seeing anything in the video that suggests that you did. I don't know what I'm doing with my fingers. Let's get rid of them. Anyhow... There is a new mode. A new mode called Expeditions. It doesn't run the whole time. It's sort of like seasonal, which is a bit of a shame. If there was one there that was there the whole time, perhaps players like yourself might have more of an interest, because it's less grindy, it's less resource driven. It's more sort of about completing a mission and getting a reward, like being given a free ship, getting given a free multi-tool even, and stuff like that. So it saves a lot of the grind and gets you places a bit quicker. So I would love it if Hello Games could make an expedition that runs in between expeditions, so there's always one available for new players. That'd be freaking ace. Heck yes.
Mechanics. After following this storyline to a third cluster of planets, I finally discovered a really cool multiplayer nexus that I could summon called the Space Anomaly, which is another feature that was added in the updates. While to my understanding the nexus did exist, the fact that I actually found players who I could interact with, very minorly, and try to join a group with was something that was part of the Beyond update of August 2019. And it was here in the Space Anomaly I received a new mission outside of the main story to find a black hole. Oh hell yeah! Now this is what I'm talking about! Sure, it's 3 to 4 star systems away from where I'm currently at, meaning I'll have to gather a crap ton of resources, craft things, run out of resources I need, and craft more things, but finding a black hole sounds amazing. And on my way, I discovered some cool sights. This cool creature that... Oh. Goodbye. And a couple of genuinely cool-looking planets with Saturn-like rings around them that looked especially cool at night with the ring glowing in the night sky. And finally, I did it. I found the black hole, something I was told to go through and would be super exciting. Now that is a cool looking feature. I've always wondered what the inside of a black hole would look like. Here we go. Wait, hold on a second. This just looks like any other solar system in the game. And how did I get on this couch? Oh.
Okay, he's raised another good point. The black holes, they seem kind of redundant now, especially since you can portal anywhere in-game without getting portal interference. So yes, the black holes, it would be nice if they found a different purpose for them, maybe jumping you into an alternate reality or the void or something like that. That could be a good idea that Hello Games could utilise. So I kind of have to agree with this chap. He has raised some good points. And when it comes to the blandness of one area to another, I kind of have to agree with him. I mean, they did suggest putting in a super formula that would bend and warp the meshes to make every single asset completely different. Yet at the moment it seems to be that you can get two rocks right next to each other that are photogenically freaking clones, you know? And yeah, and you find that over hill. And it just doesn't really play out to be how the vision or how it was put across in E3 with, you know, those diplos going down to the water hole, and you could see there that all the trees had different bends to them, different morphs, they had vines hanging down and were beautiful. You know, you don't really see planets like that all too often. So I have to agree that the procedural generation still isn't up to par to what was shown and demoed inside of those E3 videos, no. And it's definitely not every atom procedurally generated as yet.
Oh, I just warped far away. So far away that I'm in a solar system that is completely disconnected from every other narrative storyline I'm following, meaning I'm just going to have to warp right back to where I was before trying to find the black hole. Worth it! You know, I traveled this far, might as well make a base on this planet that looks kind of like Earth. If Earth experienced extreme storms with lightning everywhere, Firestorms was quite possibly the most brutal planet of any I'd found so far, and was 580 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll just go ahead and name my new base Shithole. Back in this solar system with the Artemis quest, I found myself doing another addition to the game's 2017 update, procedurally generated missions, all of which were basically fetch quests, and some of which even required me to warp to other solar systems, meaning I had to gather resources, craft materials for a warp cell, and then gather more resources, and then craft more resources, and then gather more craft and resources, and craft more resources. Eventually, I decided...
Okay, for the first, say, 40 hours of play, going through the Artemis questline, doing the actual Atlas path, you are going to have to gather resources. Until you actually upgrade your exosuit and upgrade all your ships and get all the modules in and start S-grading and upgrading all your stuff, you're going to need resources. It's almost like World of Warcraft where you play up to level 40 and then the game changes where you're sort of then polishing up your character. It's a grind to get there, and then that's when the game really begins. Technically, you're still in the tutorial, my friend. And yes, you get a lot of game for your freaking buck. Heck yes, you do. So yeah, but then it's if you enjoy it. Doing this sort of thing. If you're not into a grind, if you're not into sort of exploration, then probably not the title for you. You might want to go back to doing Rayman or some puzzle platformers, you know?
Eventually, I decided to try warping to another player's base they dubbed Sentinel Colossus just because it looked cool, stared in awe at their masterpiece, and then realized it was just like the rest of the game. Completely hollow. It looked cool, but ultimately it couldn't actually do anything. And that was when I returned to the main game and realized something. No matter what happened, I was stuck in this perpetual loop of exploring procedurally generated worlds for resources that I was constantly running out of, only to blast off to a new bland procedurally generated world for more resources I was constantly running out of. That's it. That was the game. And the biggest criticism No Man's Sky faced at launch, which is still very much the meat of the game. It doesn't matter how many updates you slap on it, multiplayer or not, more variation of plant fauna and creatures or not, harder or easier versions of the exact same thing or not, bigger base building or not, the game was quantity over quality, procedurally generated monotony. No matter how pretty some of the planets might be, ultimately there was nothing worth exploring, as I knew it was just another bland procedurally generated world with the same basic crap on it. At this point, I need to mention a few things. For one, there is now a version of the game you can choose called Creative Mode, which takes out the constant survival elements. But that's kind of most of what the gameplay is, so I'd personally feel weird choosing that mode, as just about every upgrade you find is one to make this process slightly less tedious. It takes out what little gameplay there is in this game, and if it's a sandbox game you're looking for, frankly, there's games that do it better. Also, one more thing I need to say. This video isn't a review. If you like or love No Man's Sky, that's great. Maybe this type of resource management game is your jam, and I know that some people find the game relaxing. It's completely subjective, and I'm not trying to detract from your experience if it's a game that connected with you. And I want to be honest.
Now, what I'm trying to do is picture, rather than him sitting there and doing the review of this game, is say a person of the age that this game is aimed at. So maybe say somebody under the age of 12 picking up and playing this game. And I'd imagine they're going to have very similar opinions to this chap. I just feel that Hello Games needs to sort of fess up and just say, okay, you know what, maybe we need to rebrand the whole box and put this out there as a reboot and actually deliver a game that's more adult orientated, because what we have is a more adult orientated game. I'd imagine the younger player is going to use creative mode.
With you. And I want to be honest with my personal experience. I know that many people really enjoy No Man's Sky now, and all the new updates have turned it into the game they were hoping for. It's a difficult thing because I'm not trying to tell you how you should feel, and I know many people are going to tear me apart because of my experience. For my part, despite all of the updates, all I could find was an endless loop of tedious tasks in front of me. I do think the updates helped to an extent, especially base building and the narrative, but it still culminated in the same gameplay loop. And maybe resource management survival games just aren't for me. I don't know. The thing is, I tend to enjoy most games I play. Video games are my favorite form of entertainment, and I like practically every genre of game, be it RPG.
Okay, Hello Games have implemented some RPG elements into No Man's Sky when it comes to, say, the frigates. When you send them out on missions, they slowly level up the more you use them. Maybe they need to add more RPG-type elements to a lot more of the actual game. In fact, No Man's Sky still feels very much like a sandbox experience rather than an actual game. There's not many game elements inside of No Man's Sky. It's like learning the Atlas words. If they added a puzzle element inside of the Atlas stations to learn the words, it could make it a little bit more fun. They could add elements like that into different areas of the game to make it feel more like a game. Because at the moment, it seems, I do kind of agree with something that he said earlier, where he says that it's almost like quantity over quality. We do need a little bit more quality on planet surfaces to keep us exploring, better loot, better sort of reward systems, especially now we've got those colossal archives. I put an ideas video together. There's a card in the top right hand corner, how to improve that.
While you can now build bases in No Man's Sky, it's ultimately about exploration, but the chores hinder that goal, and what's there to explore isn't really all that interesting. Every environment I explored felt bland, uninspired, and just as procedurally generated as they were. I love exploring both in games and in real life, but if you give me a game like Breath of the Wild, there's always something exciting to find around each corner, or at the very least, I can find pride in climbing up to the top of a cool-looking mountain. Or there's Dark Souls, where every area feels handcrafted and oozes with lore and meaning. That doesn't exist in No Man's Sky. There's nothing exciting to find, and constantly refilling your dwindling resources isn't a rewarding feeling as you explore a little bit further. I mean, I did fall in this cave this one time, and I guess that was a little exciting because I didn't realize it was there as I was so focused on trying to run to the next resource I had to grab, and the first time I saw water was pretty exciting, until I realized it was just visual, and while I could swim, it didn't really change the gameplay. My reward for getting further in the game was that I had to then construct more complicated things that took more basic resources, and just another loop of everything I'd done before. And look, maybe if I put 100 hours in, I'd find an enjoyable endgame, but I have absolutely no drive to get there or to do that. And even if I did, it would just be crafting items I could use to better explore planets that have nothing interesting on them to find. And yes, I'm sure the game would have looked better on PC, or if my PS5 hadn't betrayed me and pooped out on me, but graphics can't fix bland gameplay. My criticisms aside, I do want to commend Hello Games. I can completely see.
Imagine if No Man's Sky launched in its current state. Right back in 2016, current state. And then Hello Games had 5 years to work on top of it. What No Man's Sky would look like now. I kind of feel that's where we should be now, to be fair. I kind of agree that it's embarrassing that Hello Games released it in the state that it was all that time ago, but I also commend Hello Games for all the work that they've done. But at the same time, their original vision, what they stated in GDC 2015, what they showed in all of those trailers, still hasn't actually been fully actualized or realized in its entirety. And I still feel that we're a long way off of reaching their vision.
I I do want to commend Hello Games. I can completely see the difficult position they were in when the game first released. They were a small indie developer who were picked up by a major publisher in Sony and ended up having this insane expectation and deadline put on their shoulders. They didn't have to release a giant number of free updates that turned their game into their initial vision. And yet, over the course of 5 years, they have. And while it isn't for me, I do think it's great what they did, and there are people out there who really love the game now. While I do think they overpromised by pitching the game on features they hoped to include, but likely hadn't implemented yet, in the end, Hello Games took the high road. Not a single update as of today has included some extra form of payment, and I think they were really passionate about their vision, even if I didn't like it. Luckily, after No Man's Sky, everyone learned their lesson. No one overhyped a game before release or got overly excited for a game before anyone had ever actually played it, ever again.
Okay, and at this point he goes and shows Cyberpunk and all the bugs that Cyberpunk has, which is another game that doesn't run on the Nintendo Switch. So, I don't know whether this guy's just salty about games that are too powerful for his old Nintendo consoles, I don't know. But at the same time, I kind of agreed with quite a lot of what he had to say about No Man's Sky, but at the same time, Hello Games, I think, know about those pitfalls of Inside Game. Now, we are due another update this year called No Man's Sky Frontiers, and I'm hoping, Origins, they said, was a new step in the right direction, new foundation of the way that they wish to move. Now, I'm hoping that Frontiers brings us more of that vision and gets us closer to procedural greatness that was shown back in those E3 sort of videos, and some of the clips that I actually put up in the background of when I was talking and things, where you could see that each tree had a different bend, some had vines on, some had foliage, and all sorts of loveliness. The planets looked a lot more organic and a lot more alive, even going back pre-release. But yes, there we go. That's kind of my thoughts and feelings. I do feel that he raises some good points. I think he's over picky. I don't think he actually finished the Artemis quest line, so there's a lot to be said about this review. I don't even think that he put in maybe even 10 hours of play, looking at from the screenshots that I saw and the evidence that I see put before me. Sorry if you did, but at the same time, I kind of feel that you haven't really gotten out of the gates. I don't feel that you've actually done the tutorial fully. You know, this isn't Mario Kart. This isn't a game that you're going to understand and get to grips with. You've played Souls, you know. That's a bit more of a grind. That's a little bit more in tune, but still not quite there. I mean, World of Warcraft or another giant RPG is what you can liken this to. You have to build, you have to grind, and then you start to polish your character. And it's when the polish starts that the game really changes. It's the whole level 40 thing of World of Warcraft all over again inside of No Man's Sky. But if the grind isn't for you, and you don't want to put the time in to actually get to that stage, you're not going to actually get past the grind. The grind ends at some stage. You can just buy the stuff or you don't need it because you're fully OP. And at that stage, there's a different problem. The different problem is No Man's Sky stops being a challenge. And the exploration, you've seen it all. So I kind of get you on that. It does need a little bit of tweaking and balancing. It's an experience that needs game elements adding, and I do agree with you. So I'm really on the fence. I don't like your approach, but at the same time you've raised some very valid points that I hope Hello Games address in future updates, which I'm sure they will. So stay tuned, and hopefully you can revisit maybe. Anyway, until next time, goodbye, and goodbye again. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers! And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.